YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. We need to start talking more about these AI data centers that are getting built out around us. And some of you may not have noticed that they're being built out. They might look like a large Amazon factory or a large warehouse being built, but they are building thousands of these data centers out all around us. And most people don't even ask any questions. In fact, nobody's asking any questions about what these data centers are for. And they don't expect you to ask questions. Just like when COVID came, they didn't expect people to push back against the vaccine because they expected people to hear trust the science, to hear all these fake doctors on the television tell them that it was in their best interest to take it, why they needed to take it. And people finally started researching for themselves and realized that that was not something that they wanted inside of their body. And that was where pushback actually started. And we need the same pushback here when it comes to these data centers, because the alt-right media will keep you distracted with all these stories about ridiculous things that the Democrats are doing and government shutdowns. That's all done by design because they don't want you to notice that they're accelerating this build out of AI data centers. And there's a few things that I want to personally show you about these data centers that you need to know in the future. Now, number one is that Donald Trump is accelerating the build out of this AI data center infrastructure, which again, for the millionth time, for those of you that follow my channel or have followed all of my channels over the last few years, that is what the New World Order infrastructure is. It's AI infrastructure. It is what they're talking about the United Nations. It's what they're talking about the World Economic Forum. It is to build out AI governance, the removal of humans, everything being done through technology. It is our enslavement grid. Now, the first thing that needs to be discussed is how many resources are going to be drained because of these data centers, because these data centers require a massive amount of water and electricity. They are going to need millions of gallons of water daily. That's each data center. And there's going to be multiple data centers in every single state. In fact, more than multiple, there's going to be thousands of these data centers in the United States of America. So they're going to need large amounts of water and they're going to need large amounts of electricity. Now, why is that important to you? Well, for starters, if you didn't know, you need water to survive. And secondly, well, electricity is pretty vital in 2025. I mean, we all need electricity unless you're the Amish, and most of us aren't. We need electricity for lots of different reasons. Now, at the same time all this stuff is happening, people are seeing massive spikes in their electricity bill, and they don't even realize it's for these data centers that are getting built out. You're funding these data centers. But what we need to pay attention to is how they're going to use the water supply and the electrical grid, and of course, blame us and have us ration our resources, ration the amount of water that we use, which we've already seen happen in multiple states in this country. When there's droughts, man-made droughts from geoengineering, like in California, where we see them say you can't use your sprinklers, you can't take a shower, you can't flush your toilet after 5 o'clock on a Friday night. These are things we have to prepare for because they're going to use this rationing of water and electricity all under the guise of climate change. Everything that's going to enslave us is all going to go back to this data center AI grid that they're building out, along with the climate laws that they're going to pass. They're going to control your behavior, what you can buy, how much electricity you can use. And it's going to be under the guise of climate change. People aren't even going to realize that part of the reason they want you that they want you to ration your water intake and your electricity isn't just because they want to treat you like a prisoner, which of course does play a part of it. It's because they need that electricity and they need that water to cool down these data centers. So there's lots of stuff out there where you'll quietly, if you pay attention and read between the lines, where they're talking about how 40% of the public supports rationing measures to fight climate change, because that's ultimately what they're going to do. They're going to force you into rationing, and that is so that these data centers can be fully operational, fully functional, and they won't have any concerns when it comes to the amount of cooling they need and the amount of electricity that they need. Now, the other thing to pay attention to, and remember that, like I said, when you start hearing about how rationing will help fight climate change while they're using geoengineering to convince people that there's a climate problem by creating these ridiculous weather phenomena that we see all through geoengineering. So remember, they're going to start teaching the public about rationing resources, all in the name of climate change. Do your part. That's going to be the narrative, just like COVID. Be a good person. Go take this shot that you don't know anything about. Put it in your body. Don't ask questions about it. Just do it and be a good person. Do the right thing. You'll hear the same stuff with climate change. The other thing is the data centers themselves. So people just go, well, it's a data center. I don't know what that means. I don't know what these chips they're talking about are. I don't understand computers. I don't understand it to a basic standpoint, but not to a large degree of what AI even is, right? Most people don't even know what AI is. So what we need to teach people is what's going to go in these data centers, because you are a part of these data centers. The data centers are going to store all types of data permanently, which includes your personal and financial records and the data needed for online activities like streaming and learning. You are going to have all of your medical files, all of your customer financial data, all of your photos that you may have taken and uploaded to a cloud because you didn't have enough memory on your phone. Did you notice how Gmail suddenly doesn't have enough memory and they want you to pay $2.99, $5.99, $10.99 a month to store your data, all your emails into a cloud? Well, that's all going into the data centers where you'll have your own personal profile. So your photos and your videos that you take of your child or of your husband or whoever you're with or the places that you go, all of that is getting stored in these data centers. You might say, well, that's not really a big deal, but these things are going to be used against you in the future. So we're talking medical records where people say, what's really the big deal, right? Oh, okay. Then they're dismissing the notion of their personal private photos and videos. But you know what else is going to be in there? You know what else is frightening about this? Well, all surveillance footage from any store that uses a cloud-based storage system for its security cameras, which is the majority of them, are all going to go into these data centers. So start thinking about that. All stores, all street lights that have cameras on them, all of that will be tracked using biometrics, of course. You will be seen on these cameras without realizing that they're using biometrics and facial recognition to spot where you are at all times. And that's going into these data centers as well. You know what else is frightening about what's going into these data centers? Well, guess what? Every single internet search that you do when you're logged in to Gmail or wherever else, and that's pretty much every time because nobody's going in manually every time they're using a device and logging out and logging back in. But technically, you don't have to be logged in because they're tracking your IP address. So everything you search is going into this digital profile that's being created on you, along with the medical records, the photos, everything, every move you make, all that stuff is going into these data centers. You are going to be fully monitored and tracked at all times. In fact, the data centers will also be using your phone activity and storing your phone activity. In other words, the GPS on your phone where you think that it's helping you find the closest McDonald's, well, all of those things on your phone, all the locations that you go, all of that is being saved and going into these data centers as well, so they could tell you where you were at this specific day on that specific time. They will have every single movement that you make stored inside of these data centers. And of course, they tell you that, well, the government needs this stuff in there because in rare cases, there might be a criminal case, an investigation where the government needs access to all of your personal data. So they'll need to know, because of these data centers, they'll need to know how to access you inside of these data centers and then access, well, here's your GPS, here's all your movements, here's all your internet searches, here's all the things that you did on your phone, here's all the pictures that you actually took, right? This is the surveillance grid that's being built out. It is Skynet. That's what this is. Everything with Elon Musk and what we're seeing goes back to Starlink, right? Starlink has all these satellite balloons up all around the country. In fact, Starlink is now even taking over and accessing John Deere tractors. Did you know that these tractors are now connected wirelessly to Starlink without a human being driving the tractors? I've been covering this for a year or two now. Now, the alt-right media says this is a wonderful thing because we'll get rid of illegal immigrants, right? Because they say, well, a lot of the people on the farms, maybe not the farm owner, are illegal immigrants doing all the hand picking and all the work on the farm. Well, we don't need them here anymore because we can do it autonomously, right? All through Starlink. So they're going to have control and access to everything, all vehicles, right? We know that they're trying to push us all into these driverless vehicles, autonomous vehicles, right? You're going to hear propaganda in the next couple of years about, how bad it is to drive, how unsafe it is to drive. And really, that's because a lot of people are texting and driving, but you'll hear stories, right? Somebody got hit by a drunk driver. Somebody got hit by somebody who was on drugs. A truck drove off the road, killed 10 people, right? All tragic events that they'll be using to their advantage to convince people that, well, if we go autonomously, there won't be any deaths anymore. There won't be any traffic problems anymore. Of course, that won't be for people like me and you, because I'm sure our autonomous vehicles will accidentally take a wrong turn off of the Grand Canyon. But that's just, that's just the truth of the matter. And really, this is Tesla's wireless world system, okay, turning the Earth into one gigantic dynamo where everything is connected. And Elon Musk has even openly said, you aren't going to be able to escape. You might be in the middle of the desert in Death Valley, and we're going to make sure that you can be connected to the internet. And they convince these people that this is a great thing because, wow, if you're lost in the middle of the desert, we can find you. I mean, what are the odds of that? Like 1%, less than 1%. Somebody's hiking and they go missing. We'll be able to find you because you'll be connected to the internet. So they sell this to people based on those types of things, right? Making people say, well, I'm afraid if I go hiking somewhere I don't have service. Oh, my goodness. And you see how people panic when they don't have service with their phone. They hold it up and they get all flustered and frustrated immediately if they don't have service for 5 seconds. Well, don't worry. Big Brother's going to make sure you always have service because you're always going to be connected. Here's Elon Musk talking about that.
Even if an entire region or country was lost connectivity because of a severe, hurricane or floods or fires or tornadoes, earthquakes. There's so many natural disasters, obviously. You would actually still have, even if all the cell towers were taken out, your phone would still work. Thank you.
So there won't be any escape. And these data centers are getting built out all around us, and you don't hear any pushback. The only quiet pushback you're hearing are people who are smart enough to realize how much water these data centers are using, how much electricity, and they're saying, you know what? Does that mean that eventually I'm going to have to? I mean, the environmentalists should be going crazy over this, right? These people who believe in climate change should be going nuts over the data centers, but they're not. You rarely hear anything. The only pushback you're starting to hear is some locals about water, and the other is how people's electric bills are going up because the data centers that are getting built out around them are forcing their electric bills to go through the roof. So we're pretty much funding our own enslavement. Our tax money is what's funding all of these data centers being built. And on top of that, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for these data centers to be built out. So they're going to enslave you with your own money. They're going to enslave you with your own stupidity because nobody pushed back and nobody said, hey, we didn't call for AI. We don't need AI. They've been openly telling you, hey, AI is going to take your job. AI might even take your wife. AI might even take your kids. AI is going to do this. It's going to do that. You won't be needed anymore in a society with artificial intelligence. And we all just look around and nobody says boo because they're too distracted, stuck in the left-right paradigm, fighting with people who have different political ideologies, thinking that they're on one team versus the other team, like buffoons. And of course, they're getting media and they're consuming media that's keeping them stuck in the left-right and not making them aware of these things. Remember, there's only a small amount of us at first who were warning about the vaccines. I mean, I was talking about the vaccines before they came out, before COVID even hit, because yes, we all saw Event 201, but even before that, talking about nanotechnology, shedding, these things that people needed to be aware of. Obviously, all the other stuff with vaccines and autism. And of course, the rates, these children that are born with disabilities because they get these vitamin K shots right when they're born. We are all warning about it. Okay? The alt-right media wasn't saying anything, even when the vaccine came out. What did the alt-right media on television do? Fox News used a different approach and told everybody out there, hey, we're not going to tell you should lose your job over it, but we're all vaccinated. So they were persuading people in a different way, where the liberal media was saying you should lose your job if you don't have it, and everyone was getting mad because they were getting pushy. And that was one of the things that woke people up, is the way they approached it. They were pushy. And then they were bribing people, which made people go, wait a minute. When does the government give you anything for free? Ever? Well, they don't, right? But they were bribing you. Here's an Arby's gift card. Here's a lap dance at your local strip club. Here's a bottle of alcohol. Here's whatever you want, a $100 Visa card. Just come and get the shot. Come and get it, right? And people said, all right, that's a little bit weird, because people like me and you were warning people about it. Then, of course, we all got removed and got silenced. The alt-right media would start questioning it a little bit when they realized, hey, there's no going back now. These people are not going to go and get it. So they were trying to build up credibility. But right now, you don't hear them saying anything. You don't hear them talk about geoengineering ever, right? If they talk about chemtrails, they'll do what Tucker Carlson did when they talk about chemtrails and pretend like he's never heard of it before. Oh, what is that? I don't know what that is. I don't know what geoengineering is. I don't know what weather modification, all these government patents are. I don't know. And they won't talk about the data centers and AI and what they're trying to build out here, this AI governance that Trump himself is bringing in. So remember those few things that I mentioned in this video, okay, for future reference. Because when it happens, you'll say, oh, I'm prepared to combat this and tell people because I heard about it ahead of time and I thought about it ahead of time. Number one is that they're going to use the rationing by forcing climate laws on you, but convincing people that we need to do it because of the climate. Not because all of our resources are going to go to this enslavement system, this data center grid that they're building out, which is going to have what? It's going to have every step you take, every internet search you do, every email you send out. And you don't think this will be used against you for blackmail? You don't think that this is government overreach? That's the definition of what it is. But they say, well, it's all through Google. It's all through Alphabet Inc. Well, Alphabet Inc. is the government. Okay? The government runs these companies. They're all shell companies for the government. That's what they are. And then they present themselves as companies because they don't want you to get suspicious and say, wait a minute, the government's behind the internet, the government's behind us having cell phones. I thought I use my free will and went and bought that. I thought the Alexa, the whole purpose was so they could play my favorite Bon Jovi song when I wanted to request it. No, that's the ruse that they pull on everybody to bring in this surveillance tech into your home. And all those things are in the cloud too, that are in the cloud. All the stuff getting recorded inside of your home is going into the data centers as well. They just won't tell you that now because they'll come out and say, oh, no. That we would never do something like that. Well, of course they will and are. And once they have total control, then they won't care. And they'll go, oh yeah, we've been recording you for all these years. And you might say, well, I don't really care. But then you remember something you might have said that might have been anti-government in the privacy of your own home, and suddenly they use it against you and they dox your bank account or freeze it or don't let you buy food for the week, right? I mean, this is what we're allowing them to build out around us. People need to be aware because it sounds like a boring topic. Your data centers like, I don't know what that is. You are the data center. Everything you do and say, everything, every movement they're tracking with your phone, where you're going, your geolocation, that's all going into the data center without your consent. And it's all being stored for Big Brother to use against you, including every surveillance camera that's hooked up to a cloud. So that's what these data centers are for. And when they tell you there's a race to get these things built out, of course, most people don't even ask questions. They just go, we got to do it before Russia. We got to do it before China. Huh? What does that mean? Trump just goes, we got to be number one. We got to be number one. We got to build it out. Oh, so we got to be number one in building our prison grid, right? Just like we had to be number one with the vaccine, right? The father of the vax himself, Donald Trump, who isn't held accountable because they fake assassinated him, right? Absolutely incredible that we're allowing this to occur. But look around you. Find out where these things are, okay? That's one thing I recommend. Now, I guarantee you in the future when people wake up, which might be in 10 years and 20 years, where everybody realizes that they're enslaved, because right now they're just, they refuse to believe that that's a conspiracy, that's never going to happen, because they're too weak to actually, face this thing head on and try to prevent it from happening. But if you know where these things are, that's a plus. But I guarantee you these places are going to be, these things are going to be guarded, you know, more so than a military base. Like they're going to have military, National Guard guarding them because they're not going to want civilians to go there and go near these things or try to disable these things. So that's one thing that everybody needs to at least be aware of. Where are they around you? And then make people aware of what these things are really being used for. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.